So now let's talk about the next concept in art composition, and that is the idea of balance. So, um, what is balance? So, we talked about the idea of things having weight. So the focal object is the thing that has the most weight, I guess, in a scene. But that sort of implies that there are other things that could have weight, and we've already seen some examples where there seem to have other things that had various weight. And so let's talk about what it means to sort of have balance. So looking at this image, ignore the frame and just kind of look at this square image, and let's look at putting an object right in the middle. So this composition right here is just about as balanced as you could get. It's there's an object right in the middle. It feels like it's at rest. There's no sort of potential energy here. Nothing sort of, no sort of force drawing it from one direction to another. But it's kind of boring, obviously. It's very straightforward. Let's look at, though, if we were to put the object over here. This object is obviously less boring. There is tension to this scene. It sort of feels like things are kind of leaning up in the direction of that object. That's because the scene is off balance, but we could balance the scene so that the center of mass for the scene is sort of back in the center of the composition by putting another equal sort of weight here on the other side. So what would happen if we, I guess, shifted it over here? Now we end up with something where it feels like the center of mass of the balance is off the center. It's over sort of in this direction. Let's try to get it back sort of towards the center by de-emphasizing it. So less contrast with this object with the surrounding area. So this object now has less weight, but we probably, where it was back here, probably had a center of mass right here. As we add less emphasis, we sort of end up with a balance that is about right here, which still isn't quite the center, but maybe if we added another sort of very de-emphasized object, we might end up with something that's vaguely sort of balanced here in the center. So this is a lot more of sort of a balanced composition than just having this object here alone. So if we look back at the very first example image that we were looking at, this picture, like I said, there's a number of objects in here that sort of have weight. We've got these buildings over here that have some weight because of mostly because of the detail and a feeling of mass. We've got this large character, so large size, but de-emphasized by the sort of green colors and the less contrast with the background. And then this is our focal point. So here we kind of have, very similar to the three dots that I had set up, of course not in the same arrangement, but we've got a strong focal point here, and it's not quite in the center of the image, but it's the balance is sort of maintained by having a couple of different points of weight around here. So de-emphasize weight here and de-emphasize weight here, and that ends up with our balance somewhere sort of here in the center. We look at this image right here, Untitled by Gerard Trignac. Is that Trignac? I'm not sure. Anyway, I really love this scene because there is a lot of detail here, a lot of a possibility as far as like looking at sort of a game environment, because I'm looking at just I guess the thing I love about just any concept art image, or the good concept art image, is that it shows me as the designer possibilities here, or as the player possibilities. There's a lot of like places that I could go and explore over here. Like, what are these like trains, and is there something significant about it? Is there items that I can find in this area up here? Is it possible to climb up here? Are these things I can climb across? There's just so many. It's such a rich image. But if we're sort of looking at here structural composition, it's a little bit of a subjective thing here about like what is the focal point in this. But I think, to me, the most obvious focal point is this train engine right here. So this train engine is obviously like pretty close to sort of the center. It's kind of in the thirds sort of center box. There's a lot of visual weight for this the space back here, and I think that if it weren't for this large column sort of blocking off that sort of space, my eye would be probably drawn to this area a lot more than to over here. So that's another thing is when you're thinking about you know, your balanced elements in the scene, if you want the player to focus more on one thing than another, you may need to think about how do you de-emphasize various elements. We've got a lot of sort of guiding lines here that are sort of drawing the eye to sort of this sort of center space, this line across here. So we've got rails that are sort of coming and then turning sort of in this direction. A train like this has a lot of detail, and it has utility, it has weight. Anyway, so this is a pretty complex scene, but it's one that has a sense of sort of balance and, as you can see, framing of this this image.